is how we arrange things, how we place things and prioritize and put them in some sort of, arrangement that makes sense, that gives prioritization to it. Is organization. Organization in terms of how do we structure ourselves, the flow in which we go through. And the scriptures that I'm going to use are some that I've been using all week. Let all things be done decently and in order. Let all things be done decently and in order. And that's 1 Corinthians 14th chapter, the 40th verse. And we talk a lot about order, but there was another word that preceded that, and that was decent, decently and in order. Now, what does that mean? We don't give much thought or consideration to that piece of it. Decent is, according to the dictionary, Webster, well-formed, could be handsome. You know, he's a decent-looking guy. Conforming to standards of good taste. She has decent behavior. It's free from immodesty, decent language, fairly good. You know, I want to earn a decent wage. I want a decent life. It's like a minimum standard of what you're willing to accept. But that's how things should be. There should be some decency in how we treat each other, decency in how we behave, decency in how we speak, decency in how we treat each other. And that's why we have our order of worship, to allow things to flow in a way that is decent and in order. There's a level at which we all as humans aspire to. Now, there's a lot of conversation going on about the minimum wage and that type of thing. We want to be able to earn for our efforts something that allows us to lift ourselves up out of our situation and live in a humane and just way. One of the seasons that's always been important in traditional cultures, indigenous cultures, our African cultures, is harvest time. We've had that official sort of end of the summer, and we have felt the days getting shorter. We see the darkness coming a little sooner. We can see sometimes a little more crispness in the air. The leaves are beginning to change. If you look at just a little bit closer, you can see that something is happening. There's a transition that's happening. There's a shift that's happening in an environment, a shift that's happening around us, and we're moving into the autumnal season. We're moving into harvest time. It's time to start hunkering down. Time to start gathering the resources that we're going to need to get through the winter seasons. It's inevitable. We know the story of the ant and the grasshopper and how one played and the other one worked, and then the winter eventually came. It is an inevitability that there will be winter seasons in our lives. How are we preparing for them? As Minister Jehudi spoke, he said and prayed, he said that harvest time is always right now. We're always harvesting something. The harvest of our labors, the harvest of our thoughts, the harvest of our energy, the harvest of our efforts. We're always gathering something in, but what are you harvesting? Is it something that you want? Is it something that you want to fill your storehouses with? Do you want the harvest that you are gathering? Are you happy with the yield, happy with the produce? Well, so much of what we harvest depends upon what we did during planting season. What did we plant? It would be a little bit crazy for us to get out into the fields and expect to harvest some avocados if we planted plums, or expect to harvest apples and we're in Orange County. It just doesn't work like that. What you plant is what you receive, the yield that you get. So what are you receiving in your yield right now? Let's go back then to what it is that you planted. And if you're not happy with what you're receiving, then perhaps we need to examine that planting season. Matthew 13, chapter, the 3rd through the 9th verses, and I'm reading from the King James Version. And he spake many things unto them in parables, saying, Behold, a sower went forth to sow. And when he sowed, some seeds fell by the wayside, and the fowls came and devoured them up. Some fell upon stony places where they had not much earth, and forthwith they sprung up because they had no deepness of earth. And when the sun was up, they were scorched. And because they had no root, they withered away. And some fell among thorns, and the thorns sprung up and choked them. But some other fell into good ground and brought forth fruit, some 100-fold, some 60-fold, some 30-fold. Who hath ears to hear, let them hear. What are you harvesting? What is your bumper crop? Now, in this scripture, we see that it's not the seeds that were sown that made the difference, because the sower used the same seed. He gathered them all from the same bag, and he tossed some out. Some went hither and some went yon, but it was the same seed. We are all made and given the same seed, the God seed that is within us, that Christ potential that is our root and at our core. If you plant an acorn, give it enough sunlight and water and nurture, you're going to get an oak tree out of that. We are God's seed. You give us enough sustenance, give us the right conditions, give us the right nurture, give us the right treatment, and we will bloom and prosper into the gods that we are. There is no variance in it. It is an undeniable, immutable law. We can't change that. That is our nature. That is who we are. Genesis 1:28 says, and God blessed them, and God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth and subdue it and have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the fowl of the air and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. God has given us that seed to multiply. He's given us the ability to be fruitful. He's given us that already. But what are we harvesting? What are we harvesting? We got the good seed. That's a given. That's been given to us. Now, what are the conditions into which our seeds are planted? Now, we know that can be very variable for so many. Some seeds fell by the wayside, and the fowls came and devoured them up. Some fell upon stony places where they had not much earth. There are sometimes when we are given to the cares and the concerns of this world, we get the word, we get that little taste of truth, but it doesn't have the ability to take root deeply. And sometimes those fowls of the air, those concerns of the world may come and grab them up before we even have a chance to allow it to take root within our lives. Sometimes it falls upon the stony ground, those hard hearts that have been hardened by cynicism, hardened by the treatment of the world, the things that they've been taught that I got to do this in order to do that. I got to be tough. I got to have that hard exterior, and it doesn't fall into the softness of our spirit where it can be allowed to grow and develop. What are you fertilizing that seed with? What words are you bringing into it? What music are you listening? What are the things that are you feeding that are allowing you to grow? Are you spending time with yourself? Are you going into that silence inward in meditation and allowing the truth to be fertilized and nurtured and grow within you? Are you pruning it? Are you pruning the trees, the branches, the vines as they grow? We have to cut back from the extraneous. There's so many things that we want to do, and I'm so guilty of this. There's so many things that I may want to do, and you can spread yourself thin and realize that you don't have the energy to do what you want to do, and everything begins to suffer, and your produce suffers. Those who are wise, those who have a green thumb, those who are experts in horticulture, they go out and they prune the unnecessary. They get rid of the dead leaves and those branches that are not being productive. They trim it off, they throw it into the fire, and it is burnt away and cast off, so that what is left, what does remain, produces a sweet fruit. Something that we enjoy, that we taste, and is useful for us. It invigorates us. We assimilate it into ourselves. We appropriate it. When we eat, we appropriate, we consume, and it becomes a part of us. What are we consuming? What is our harvest? Jesus said in John 15:5-8, I am the vine, ye are the branches. He that abideth in me, and I in him, the same bringeth forth much fruit. For without me ye can do nothing. If a man abide not in me, he is cast forth as a branch and is withered, and men gather them and cast them into the fire, and they are burned. If ye abide in me, and my words abide in you, ye shall ask what you will, and it shall be done unto you. Herein is my Father glorified, that you bear much fruit. That you bear much fruit, so shall you be my disciples. That you bear much fruit, that you be productive, that you live a life that is a life that's pleasing. We all want to live a life that is decent and in order. But so many times we're stuck struggling. We're stuck in some place that is indecent. Indecent for us as children of God. Indecent for us who claim to be joint heirs with Christ. Indecent for us when we have to scrape and struggle for the minimum, the least of which, when we are supposedly given dominion over the world, over everything that flies, over the ideas that are lofty, over the creeping ideas, the things that are of this world. We were given dominion over. So why is it that we face these challenges? Why is it that the produce that I seek, why is it that what we want is not harvested? We have to sometimes eliminate the infestations that come. You know that when you're growing something, when you're planting and you have your garden out there, you get that tomato it looks like it's just about ripe, and all of a sudden you turn it around, there's a worm in there. And what you've been expending all your efforts on, what you've been spending that time, the effort, and the energy is now for naught. Because something has gotten in there. There's an infestation that has made it corrupt now. What was good and pure and wholesome is now not fit to be anything but thrown away and tossed in the compost heap and used for fertilizer for something else. Your emotions are not going to stay bottled within you. Your emotions are going to come out in some sort of way, and we end up manifesting those emotions, those attitudes of hate and anger and guilt and shame. We end up manifesting those things as disease and sickness and illness. It all has to come out in some sort of way. What are you harvesting this harvest season? What is in your basket? What is in your cornucopia? Is it something that is nourishing and inviting, or is something that is repugnant to you? What are you harvesting this harvest season? When we get our fruit, we have to check it. You go into a grocery store, go to Walmart, go to Kroger, and when you see people, they'll pick up the produce, they'll pick it up, they'll look at it, and different people have different techniques. They may squeeze it, they may smell it, they may thump it to hear the ripeness, but they're checking for the color. Check your produce to see, is it ripe? Has it been vine ripened? Or did they pick it a little bit too early? It doesn't feel and taste the same. It has to be vine ripened. And Jesus said, I am the vine. Are we following the way that Jesus put for us? He said, I am the vine. I am. We talk about that God, I am. Jesus wasn't talking about himself personally all the time. When he says, I am, he is talking about how Moses talked about I am. Who is it that sent you? I am that I am. Tell him I am sent you. That is the God of who we are. I am. And be careful in how you use your I ams. Don't associate it or attach it to a negative. I am poor. I am tired. I am wretched. That is the God that you are creating. Check your produce. Matthew 7:16-20, ye shall know them by their fruits. Do men gather grapes or thorns, or figs or thistles? Even so, every good tree bringeth forth good fruit, but a corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruit. A good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit, neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit. Every tree that bringeth forth not forth good fruit is hewn down, cast into the fire. Whereby their fruits shall you know them. Wherefore by their fruits shall you know them. You don't have to worry about what anybody says or any of that stuff. You don't have to get concerned and locked into any of that stuff, judgment or any of that. You will know them by the fruits that they bear. The produce of their life will be evident for itself. The produce in our lives is evident. By the same token, they will know us by the fruits that we bear. What are you collecting this harvest time? What are you collecting this harvest season? Check your produce. Finances and affairs. Check your produce. I heard something the other week, and it resonated within me because it spoke to me. And it says that whenever you're dealing with these challenges or finances or affairs, check your thinking. Check your thinking. And that is a key to your produce. Whenever you're dealing with something that's physical, that's pain or ailment or disease, check your emotions. Check your emotions and see what is leading to that. Louise Hay did a whole series of books on that whole thing that our emotions express themselves in our lives as dis-ease. It comes out. So look at your produce. Look at your harvest. What is it in your basket? Look and see. Maybe there's some stinking thinking going on, and that's why you have fruit flies buzzing around this rotten produce. There's something going on in our thinking that isn't quite right. And again, I'm not talking to any one of you guys. There's a mirror right here, and I'm talking to myself. There's something going on, a physical ailment, look inside and check yourself before you wreck yourself, because something is happening emotionally that you need to get in order. Is it the feelings of anger? Is it feelings of guilt, unworthiness, shame, pain, lack of love? That's what it all boils down to. The feelings of inadequacy, the feelings of lack of love. Check yourself. What's in your harvest? It's harvest time in Spirit Family. We feel it in the air. Football time. The seasons are changing. The autumnal colors people are putting on, they're wrapping up. Because something's coming. That winter will come. But will you be ready? It's harvest time in Spirit. People, get ready. I love you all. Peace and blessings.